Well, howdy. What's behind me here? Looks like a bunch of Western stuff, right? Well, we're here in Lone Pine, California. I've driven by this place so many times and never stopped. And so now's the time to go in and take a look. It's the Lone Pine Western Museum of Western Film History. So let's go in and take a look and see what it's all about. So here's the museum in all its glory. And I think what we're going to do is take it from earliest to most recent. So let's start over here in the silent film era and following. So the first movies in this Lone Pine area were, I think, 1919. The silent movies, and Fatty Arbuckle was a big star in the movies that started here back then. And as the years went by, the first color movie in the Lone Pine area was in 1929. So think about that. You know, we always think of black and white movies pretty much up until the 40s, right? But of course there was Wizard of Oz. But the first color movie was 1929 of the Western movies here in the Lone Pine area. Pretty interesting stuff, you know. Buck Jones, Ken Maynard. Of course, these names, I guess, don't ring a bell to us these days, as they're just about 100 years old. Jack Hoxsey was a big name back then. As the years went by, there were a lot of B movies that were produced, especially during the war years, to really fill up the theaters because the insatiable appetite that people had going to the movies. And then in the post-war years, there was a shifting to the bigger productions and the bigger stars. That's where you get Randolph Scott in the mix, Robert Taylor, Richard Widmark, Steve McQueen. You remember this from a few videos back? You haven't got the guts, Nevada Smith. Randolph Scott again, Joel McRae, and of course Audie Murphy. Who can forget him? We'll skip this for a second. And then, of course, John Wayne, big star here in the movies in the area. And all these movies that we're seeing, these posters that you might catch a glimpse of, all these movies were either produced just about totally or some portion of them here in the Lone Pine area, especially in the Alabama foothills. In fact, if you ever look at those old movies, you see the craggy rocks, the rounded rocks, and then the big mountains in the background. That's the Sierra Nevada. But of course, John Wayne had a bunch of time in the area, and his get up from Rio Bravo. See that? To that there. We'll go over to this side and then we'll come back over here. So then Tom Mix was a big guy in the area. He did, dozens of movies here. The Texas Bad Man. Then we had the Singing Cowboys. Can you name them? Gene Autry, yes. And Tex Ritter. And who can forget Roy Rogers? Sioux City Sioux. Did you ever see that movie? Roy Roger, Dale Evans, howdy. And then, if you're old enough to remember as a kid, Hopalong Cassidy in the Bar 20 Ranch. Now, the interesting thing about Hopalong Cassidy is that most of his films were to be depicting Mexico, South America, and even, well, the Bar 20 Ranch was supposed to be in Wyoming. But all those, just about all those scenes and all those movies were filmed right here in the Lone Pine area. And then, of course, we can't forget the TV Westerns. Lone Ranger, yep, that's right. But look at all these that were filmed here, you know. Have Gun Will Travel, Rawhide, Wanted Dead or Alive, Tales of Wells Fargo, The Virginia Bonanza, The Rifleman, Wyatt Earp, of course, Maverick, and then the longest running TV Western, Gunsmoke. Remember all these guys?
During the 1860s, the Ridge Rider was not a lawman, but he followed a personal code of honor and justice.
Now, in addition to Westerns, of course, there were other genres that were filmed here. Let's go look over here. Rome, India, other lands. The biggest picture filmed in this area was Gunga Din. In fact, they built a whole Indian town and area in this area here. Gladiator, Charge of the Light Brigade. Baghdad with Maureen O'Hara. Swans, I've never seen this one. King of the Khyber Rifles. Huh. And then, of course, there's been some sci-fi movies done here. Maybe you'll know some of these. Star Wars. Star Trek. Iron Man. And one that was kind of a, I don't know, cult classic. Tremors, remember that one? Tremors was the one where they had the giant worms doing their thing underneath the ground. Rocket Ship XM, Bamboo Saucer. Again, Star Trek V, Star Trek Generations. There's really so much to see here, and I can't even do it justice on a 10-minute video or whatever. But, I mean, it's even worth a trip, driving up Highway 395 if you're in Southern California, and stopping here at this Lone Pine Museum. You could literally spend a couple hours here if you were going through everything detailed wise. But it's a pretty nice little museum. So Highway 395, Lone Pine. For those of you going from Southern California on up to the Sierras, Lone Pine's the first town you get to past the 395-14 merge. You're probably going up to Mammoth. You know, instead of driving up the 395, take that all the way up the eastern side of the Sierras to Lake Tahoe and Reno. Pretty drive. You get stuff like this, as well as the Laws Museum and up in Bishop, and the Eastern Sierra Museum in the town of Independence. So come on down, or come on up to the Lone Pine Western History Museum. You'll be glad you did. And Now, where we're off to, well, as you know, who knows where we're going, but we're going somewhere, so follow along and let's see what we do. Did you know, in this desert climate, that Lake Havasu is the city that's home to the most